There is one thing that is maybe extremely underrated that we've seen change so far in spring ball for Michigan football. We're going to get into that and more right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your man at the car dealership. Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. I'll explain that here momentarily, but we are going to get into some of the things that Blake Frazier had to say today that I think is crucial, pivotal. We've touched on it before, but I think now that we've got some quotes, we can kind of get more into it. Then we're going to talk about the unhingedness that we've seen in the reaction to Michigan basketball. Not to kick a dead horse, but it's been nuts. And then finally, CBS Sports, where they ranked Bryce Underwood among the Power 4 quarterbacks. Is it too high, too low, just right? We're going to get into that as well. So let's start right away into some of the things that Blake Frazier said. I want to pull up some of the quotes that he had to say here. And of course, I closed my window, but it's a little easier because I've got a camera right ahead of me here. At least I thought it was. So nonetheless, one of the things that we're hearing coming out of spring ball press conferences is that you're starting to see that the practices are shorter. And I know that might seem like counterintuitive to it being a thing, but like it absolutely for two reasons can be really good. I'll get into the main reason actually second, but ultimately, like the type of stuff we're hearing is about this is that they're getting a lot more accomplished and there's no wasted space essentially, which is kind of surprising to think. Like, I understand like Blake Frazier, he's only been around from the Sharon Moore era forward. He wasn't part of Jim Harbaugh, but I mean, we even heard that coming out of players like Rod Moore. So here's what he had to say. I think it's a lot more execution based. We're not out there as long as we were last spring for practices in the past. There's a lot more focus on getting more work done in less time, so less taxing on the body, but still making sure that we're getting as much work done and work at the things that we need during that time. So talking about execution based, it's funny because his next quote doesn't sound like it is what I would think it is, which is, hey, we need to get the play right. We need to get it done quickly, that type of thing. Because he says this, it's just making sure that we're getting reps at different plays, essentially. It's a new offense. So as we install stuff, the coaches are making sure that what may have worked at Utah may not work here or may work here. So they're just making sure that as we go further into spring and install more plays, that we're running those plays and actually getting real live reps with the guys that we have here. So it doesn't sound like it's necessarily a scenario where they are necessarily like, okay, we got to get this play perfect. Now, I think that they will maybe get to that more so, but it's like, hey, we need to get this done as correct as possible, as quickly as possible so that we can get as much of this installed. And then you hopefully get to like, let's get it perfect. Because again, I've told you this before. I had heard multiple people tell me that they were not practicing to perfection under the previous regime. Now, there's people that could probably say that's incorrect, whatever, but that's just what I've heard from people who had been essentially a part of it. So I think that there's that aspect, right, that they needed and haven't been able to necessarily get done, especially when you hear that this is an attention to detail staff, one that's like a lot of teachers out there. I think that you can assume that they are doing that. But I think one of the sneaky important things that we haven't talked about, and he said it right here, there's a lot more focus on getting more work done in less time, so less taxing on the body. What was one of the issues in the Sharon Moore era in particular that was a massive impediment? It was the taxing on the body. How often were we pulling up injury reports 2 hours before kickoff and finding out there was a player that no one had any idea was injured, suddenly injured? How many times did that happen? It happened, I mean, even spring ball 2024, Rod Moore tears his ACL. And so you have that. And I want to combine this with what he had to say about strength and conditioning, said they know what they're doing. Obviously, they produced a ton of guys over at Utah and brought in a couple guys from different places, but they've been super helpful in adapting what this team needs and making sure that everyone's in the spot that they need to be. I think that if you combine, perhaps a strength and conditioning staff that seems to be more centered on the idea of we need to get these guys in a different style of shape, right? That's kind of the thing, is what works, what doesn't work. And then on top of that, finding a way to not put them under as much physical stress in the practice portions of the week. I think that can pay some massive dividends because you just have your players healthier and ready to go. Now, how does that change compared to, and I'm not sure if it will, I don't know what, but like one of the things that Jim Harbaugh had kind of implemented was this idea of practices were harder than the games. And I remember like talking to Jamie Morris back before I got to know Jamie really well, and him talking at on a panel, alum, Greater Detroit chapter, about just that was the thing when he was playing, was the practices were harder than games. You get into a game and you're like, this is easy compared to what we do during the week. I don't know if that changes or not, but I would be curious to see how much just a healthier version of the Wolverines, what that looks like in the season. Now, long way to go to the season, which kind of is disappointing because coming off of basketball, it's like, man, just hankering for something, I know there's hockey tonight, or tomorrow night rather. Yeah, I still think it's a good thing. So we'll see how that ends up working. All right, we're going to continue on. We've got more coming up here in just a moment.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. UCLA made history by winning its first NCAA Women's Basketball National Championship, dominating South Carolina 79-51. The Bruins controlled the game from start to finish with elite defense and balanced scoring, finishing the season 37-1. Star center Lauren Betts was named Most Outstanding Player, leading a team effort that capped a 31-game winning streak. Under head coach Corey Close, UCLA secured a landmark title that has been decades in the making. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Get Locked On Wolverines ad-free with the Everydayer Club. Plus, members-only Discord access. Join at lockedonwolverines.supercast.com. All right, so one of the things that I find hilarious and amazing coming off of the basketball national championship, and we talked about this in the immediate aftermath, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is just how unhinged the rivals have been. And it's not just the rivals. What's incredible is that you've got we talked about this directly yesterday. You've got so many people in the national media who are actually pushing back on this. We talked about Dan Wolken. We talked about Ari Wasserman yesterday. It is unreal just seeing that they're the ones coming to the defense, because yeah, you do get some who are in the national media. I've seen some really unhinged takes, but generally, like, you got Nick Wright, you got Jason Whitlock, you got these dumb opinions, but generally, like, the rivals are the ones that are really pushing it. And they're just trying to do every single thing they can to invalidate it. And that's why I keep on saying, and I've been saying, and I'm just going to keep saying, they're giving the game away, right? Because that whole time that they were whining about the Connor Stallion stuff, they were saying the same type of stuff that they're saying now. Like, I literally saw a Spartan account that said, like, there's asterisks on this national championship. And it's like, but why? Why are there asterisks? But it's just vibes. That's the only reason why is there's asterisks on it, is because their own vibes. Their unwillingness to come along with reality. Their unwillingness to see the team that they hate succeed. And it's coming, it's Spartans and Buckeyes, right? Like, the Buckeyes are really trying hard to glom on to the fact that Michigan lost the Big Ten tournament and saying that they didn't even win the Big Ten, except for they did win the Big Ten, right? Because basketball has two ways that you can win the Big Ten, and arguably it's the most important way that Michigan won by 4 games the regular season. The tournament is icing, and Dusty May had even said kind of like, yeah, we want to win, but not at the cost of grander expectations, which they actually ended up achieving. So it's interesting just to see, and now you're not going to get like a bunch of people like, on the other side being like, so great, guys, congratulations. You're just not. But I think it comes with, and I've seen a lot of you out there who have taken it in stride, which I love, and that you're looking at it and saying like, you're not saying like, trophy go brr this time as much, but at the same time, you're getting a heightened enjoyment from just the anger that is coming, particularly from East Lansing and a little bit from Columbus. But at the same time, in Columbus, they had very little expectation that their basketball team was going to do well. But at the same time, it's so humorous just to watch these guys fall over themselves to not only, and particularly the Michigan State people, not only to try to somehow like in their own minds invalidate what Michigan was able to do over the course of the season and try to make it like, oh, like the transfer portal, you had to use the transfer portal as if it's not a thing. Like, listen, not everyone's going to Dabo Swinney this thing because why would you? The rules changed, and Dusty May is the best at taking advantage of said rules. And as much as you might not like it, just because he's the best at it and he took advantage of it, because what would be the alternative, right? The last couple of years, it's not like he inherited a bunch of players. Yeah, he had an 8 in 2014, but he also saw a lot of those guys either graduate or transfer out. And, Terrace Reed even said after the championship game that Dusty wanted to keep him. Like oh yeah, I talked to Dusty, because they apparently talked, on the court afterwards. And he's like, yeah, I talked to Dusty and, he had recruited me to try to stay at Michigan. And obviously he ended up at UConn. And so you already have if you don't have all the players to field on the court and you don't have enough recruits to field a team, are you just supposed to sit there and take it? Or are you supposed to hit the very legal transfer portal and play the very legal NIL game as Dusty did? Because I think you're going to see a difference in Dusty May teams moving forward, because I think, like we talked about yesterday, what does this team look like moving forward? I think you're going to see 2, maybe 3 transfers coming in this year, not 4 like last year. And I think you're going to see, Trey McKinney is almost certain to be a starter. If LJ Kaysen, another recruit, had been healthy, he would be a starter as well. You're going to have another year of Elliot Cadeau. You probably have another year of Morez Johnson, another year of him, even though he was a transfer. Therefore, he has more time on task in Ann Arbor than he ever did at Illinois. Elliot Cadeau will be matching that by the end of the year. But then I think you're going to see a Brandon McCoy, a recruit, be able to come in and make an impact. But I think they'll still go out and get a couple guys. And then I think in a couple of years, that's what it will be like. It will be supplemental. But they want to complain, essentially. Really, it's just them wanting to take their ball and go home. That's all it is. Because if they could have done it, because now you see them be like, oh, we're just a center away. We're just a center away. Are you, though? I think the most hilarious part of it, honestly, is just seeing how many I've seen like USA Today, the mothership for my other job. Apparently in the preseason, they're way too early poll, which is, I think it's way too early because we don't know what these rosters look like. Unlike after the football national championship, when transfer portal was done, we have a pretty good idea of what these teams look like. Basketball, it just started. So you're doing way too early without knowing what these teams are going to look like whatsoever. It's they ranked apparently MSU number 1. And they're celebrating that. So take the wins where you get it, I guess, MSU fans. But and I mean I get it. If Michigan was in their shoes and that was the case, that would be what y'all would be doing too. but their inability to cope has been nothing short of entertaining and amazing. So, I mean, I think that's the part of the fun, I guess. I don't think other teams have to deal with this as bad as Michigan does. So I applaud you if you're a Michigan fan for taking enjoyment out of it. I'm certainly taking enjoyment out of it as a Michigan media person, because it's like it's absurd watching all these people. And it's not even just MSU fans, like Purdue fans, Illinois fans. I've seen a Florida State fan get all up in arms for whatever reason. Like you have no part of this. Like, what are you even doing? But just the hate that Michigan gets is generally incredible, because by all accounts, these are great kids. Dusty May's a great dude. And when you start to impugn him and these guys in particular, or get so up in arms about the Yaxel whipping his belt in the air type of thing, which is just innocuous, right? Like they act like they just created World War III by doing that. Gives the game away. So, all right, we are going to get to this CBS Sports article on ranking the quarterbacks, where Bryce Underwood stands. My thoughts on that. Let's do that here in just a moment. But before we do, workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on you and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute that I have been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and interviewing those candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now to support our show by saying that you heard about us heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. We're going to continue on here momentarily, but before we do, what if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood Prediction Markets. Not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood Prediction Markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when the momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator, play-by-play. You decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, my friend Brad Crawford over at CBS Sports, we mention him every now and again. And he is a friend of mine, a former colleague of mine. I mean, technically still a colleague, just not at the same company. I know he doesn't love Michigan, but I think that this is kind of fair where he has Bryce Underwood. He has Bryce Underwood as the number 23 quarterback out of the Power 4 conferences. So above middling. He has him ahead of Bear Bachmeier at BYU, who was certainly having all kinds of accolades and, thought of very well from his freshman year. But he has Bryce as the number 23 quarterback and number 7 in the Big Ten. I think it's an absolutely fair place to be if you're looking off of resume with just a tiny bit of potential, tiny bit. So here's what he had to say. The first player Michigan coach Kyle Whittingham recruited back to the Wolverines was Underwood, a talented piece he said was essential to an elite Big Ten finish in 2026. Whittingham raves about the ceiling for 2025 recruiting cycle's number 1 player. After Underwood eclipsed 2,500 yards of total offense as a true freshman, Underwood is still raw as a passer, but appeared to grow in his confidence level as last season progressed. 7 of his 9 interceptions came over the last 5 starts as a result of being a bit too confident in his abilities downfield. I would disagree with that last part, actually. I think he threw a lot of interceptions because he just mechanically, whether it was footwork, whether it was arm mechanics, whether it was not trusting his offensive line, I just think there were a lot of factors. Overconfidence is probably part of it, but not all of it. Like I said, he's number 7 in the Big Ten. He's, I think, the second year player. He's just behind Jaron. I can't say his name. Sagapolu Tele from Cal. He's 2 spots behind Rocco Becht at Penn State, who's obviously an elder statesman. He's only a couple spots behind John Mateer. Damon Williams is at Washington is 18th. Just continuing through, Josh Hoover, formerly of TCU, but now at Indiana's 10th. Jaden Mayava is 9th. And then the top 2 are Dante Moore at Oregon at number 1 and Julian Sayin at Ohio State at number 2. I think that's a fair place to put Underwood, to be honest. In terms, however, of potential, what he is capable of, I think Underwood is, he should be a top 10, but he has not proven that yet. And I think that's a fair place to put him based off of the fact that as much as we hyped up Bryce Underwood last year at this time, he was still a true freshman. And he made a lot of true freshman mistakes that, listen, I didn't think he was going to make. Connor Stallions, based off of his month of being the offensive coordinator at Belleville, also didn't think he was going to make, but he still made them. And I think it was maybe unfair on my end to think that he was going to transcend typical things that a first-year player does. Just because Trevor Lawrence didn't have those issues didn't mean that Bryce wasn't, but Trevor also had the benefit of being behind Kelly Bryant and not starting until game 5 when he had earned it fair and square with that level of competition that he had. Bryce didn't get that benefit. He still doesn't have that benefit right now, unfortunately, because spring ball, he's not really being challenged. Like all the Tommy Carr talk. Again, I'm not saying this is a negative on Tommy Carr, but he is also a true freshman. And right now it's Bryce, Tommy Carr, and Chase Herbstreit, right? Like it would be a different deal if Braden Fowler-Nicolosi was on campus right now, and he's not. Fall camp, you hope that he is there, full go, all that stuff can actually push him a little bit. But he doesn't necessarily fully need to have that as much as he just needs the coaching, and that's what he's getting. And he has the intangibles. He has the talent. If he increases just by 5%, if he increases his accuracy, he threw for 60%, which used to be the benchmark. No longer is it. You hope it's more like 10%. You hope it's more like 15%. That's a high number to get. And I think just by virtue of the scheme changing and having like the wide receivers being able to play more free, like we talked about on Monday, I think that can, pay some massive dividends for what Underwood is capable of doing this year. And I think that Jason Beck is going to put him in a better position. I know that there's not going to be the friction like there was between Sharon Moore and Chip Lindsey with Kyle Whittingham and Jason Beck. And that in and of itself, I think is going to be helpful too, right? Like we didn't really get the full Chip Lindsey experience last year. And maybe it looks different if it was kind of like, hey, Chip, you come in and do your thing rather than you come in and do a part of what you do and while still maintaining the identity that we had already kind of set about. And I just don't think that's generally fair. Josh Gaddis had similar issues. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think that's a fair ranking for now, and we'll see where it ends up. All right. If you're wondering why I'm at a car dealership getting my oil changed, car's actually ready. We decided to stay here and finish out the show so I can get it up. So that's where we're at. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will be back tomorrow. Also, Big Ten squad, all of that. We're doing as many Big Ten squad shows as possible. I'm going to be obnoxious on it, so you're going to want to watch that and listen to that. All right, we'll talk to you again soon. Peace.